Hello, I'm socially impaired, and this video has been brought to you by
Rats! Rats! Nice dead rats for sale! Perfect for rat stew, rat soup, rat pie, and the ever-popular ratatouille.
Okay, so the midterms are coming up, they're right around the corner, and very recently, Obama has made a little video to try and address excuses that people give when they choose not to vote.
I don't care about politics. Look, I don't care about Pokemon, but that doesn't mean it won't keep on coming back. That's actually what people in power are betting on, that you'll check out, that you won't vote. And when you opt out, that's what allows other people to essentially fill that void. It allows them to do nothing about the things that you'd like to see government do.
Democrats, on a regular basis, will say, look how terrible and stupid and idiotic my opposition is. You can't allow that person to gain power, so by default, you should really give it to me. Okay? Democrats make that argument on a regular basis. They just don't break it down in the manner that I just did. You know, obviously, they're not going to come out and say, I'm a terrible person, but that person over there is worse. But what they do is they put a lot of emphasis on how terrible their opposition is, while avoiding a lot of very specific policies that they could be fighting for. What Democrats want is to have their cake and to eat it too. They want to get power and they want to maintain that power. But what they don't want to do is put forth very specific economic policies, like Medicare for All as an example. They don't want to do that because their donors don't want them to do that. So what they try to do is try and convince the voters that the other person, their opposition, is just so terrible, so horrible, that you cannot allow that person to gain power. When we vote for the Democratic Party, specifically because we are voting for the lesser of two evils, then we allow them to do nothing because they didn't really promise much. It was simply, look how bad that other person is, ergo, you should vote for me. Okay, well then we vote for the Democratic person, they gain power, but they don't have to be accountable for the things that they said because all that they said was, look how terrible that other person is. What we need are politicians to actively, passionately, and aggressively promote very specific economic policies. That is what we need. And if you are not willing to push the Democratic Party in that direction as the leader that you are, then maybe you should just get the hell out of the way.
So if you really want to throw a wrench in their plans, throw them out. Vote in somebody better.
Hey, both of these people suck, but this person's better than that other person. So vote that other person out. See, Obama, what you need to do is say, vote for these people on the left because of these very specific policies that they're fighting for. That's what you need to do. But you're not doing that. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too. You want people to vote for the Democratic Party, but you don't want to give them reasons on why you should vote for them. So you paint your opposition as the bad guy, which I'm not saying that they are or are not. What I am saying is that that is an election of the lesser of two evils, which very much pushes people away from the polling booths.
Next, why bother voting when I can't relate to the candidates? Now, this is actually a good question.
Now, I'm sure that a lot of people, even nowadays, especially nowadays, are really sick and tired of the political behavior that politicians give out. Meaning they portray themselves in a very particular kind of way because it appeals to all demographics. It's someone who's bullshitting you in order to get your vote or your money or your whatever. And you're not really experiencing who they are as a person. So if you're talking about that, then yeah, I think people don't like the bullshit that comes with a lot of politicians.
For way too long, politicians haven't been representative of America as a whole. But that's changing this year. More women are running for office than ever before. More LGBT candidates are running for office. First-time candidates, young veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan, young leaders from across the political spectrum. So this year, more than any other year, you have the chance to change the face of politics so that it looks more like your own.
Oh, okay. So maybe I should have played that whole clip, because I thought you were talking about relating to the candidate as a person, when in reality what you meant was relating to the candidate based off their gender and if they're part of the LGBTQ plus community. I think I said all that right. So they look more like us. And your argument is that during this election, there's going to be more women, more LGBTQ plus, etc. There's going to be a lot of diversity in the people running for office. So because of that, you can find people that can represent you because they have, say, the same skin pigmentation or they have the same biological makeup. Look, I'm not going to speak for others on this issue, but for myself, I don't vote for someone because they're a white straight male, and I can better relate to that because I also am a white straight male. That is not how I cast my vote, okay? I cast my vote based on what the person is going to fight for. Do they support a Medicare for All system? Do they? Do they not? I'm going to cast my vote for a person if they have my best interest at heart. If they have very specific economic policies that not only do I support, but I can hold their feet to the fire because they ran on those very specific issues. When the things that people run on are the lesser of two evils or their gender or their race or something to that effect, then that doesn't sway me. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what sex you are. I don't care if you're straight or gay. I couldn't give a rat's ass about that. What I do care about are the policies that you're running on and how aggressively are you pushing those policies. Are you just expressing those policies in order to get elected, or do you actually mean it and care about it and are willing to fight as hard as you can to make sure that those things got done? That is how I cast my vote. That is how you can exponentially expand the Democratic Party. You want the Democrats to have power? It's not that hard. All you have to do is push things like, Medicare for all, making public college tuition paid for by the public, raising the minimum wage to a living wage and then tying it to inflation, ending the wars, ending the drug war, legalizing marijuana on a federal level, getting money out of politics and have campaigns publicly financed. The amount of money we would save by not living in an oligarchy is
unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.
My vote doesn't matter. Now, the last presidential election turned on fewer than 100,000 votes in 3 states. More people go to Coachella. Look, when it comes to something like Dancing with the Stars, people actually think their vote matters. But a vote in this November's election actually does matter.
I think the reason that people think their vote doesn't matter is because, as an example, during the 2016 election, people looked at that and said, there's one giant massive pile of shit as a human being called Donald Trump who's going to fuck shit up to no end, so I can't vote for him. But then we have Hillary Clinton, who's a giant massive pile of shit who's going to maintain the really fucked up status quo to no end. So I guess we're just totally fucked regardless of which way we cast our vote. Now, granted, there were third parties running, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Most people vote based off a political calculation and not vote based on who they actually support. That's for another video. But for now, people look at the election and say, hey, you're promoting yourself as the lesser of two evils, and we're in a dire situation. We can't afford to get really shitty candidates, but not as shitty as those other really, really shitty candidates. We can't afford that. And we can't tolerate that. And if that's the system we live in and there's nothing we can do about it, well then I guess my vote doesn't really matter, because regardless of which way I cast it is irrelevant. Whoever I vote for, we're going to get a pile of shit. So I guess my vote doesn't matter. I think that is the reason why people say my vote doesn't matter, which is what you should really be addressing.
It could elect people who make our criminal justice system fair and your student loans easier to afford.
This is a cliche. This is a cliche. Okay? If he was really serious about this, what he would do is aggressively push the Democratic Party to make public college tuition paid for by the public. These are things that people support, and the Democrats could win elections if they ran on these very specific issues, but they don't want to deliver. They don't actually want to do these things because they don't really work for you and I. They work for their donors. They want to maintain the status quo. So what they do, the way that they try to have their cake and eat it too, is that they do cliches. They come out and say, well, you know, what we would really like to do is make public college tuition more affordable. Oh, really? Okay. So if you save one single dollar, 100 pennies, then technically you have fulfilled that promise. Which is why that promise is bullshit. There's a very specific policy that the American people are fighting for, and we're just waiting for the goddamn Democrats to get on board. And they're not, because they don't actually want to do that. That's why they do cliches like, oh, well, you know, maybe we could make it more affordable. Oh, wow, thanks.
And by the way, you wouldn't let your grandparents pick your playlist. Why would you let them pick your representative who's going to determine your future?
Well, why don't you give us someone to vote for that's an actual leader with very specific policies that they're actively fighting for? Then maybe we would vote for them. Huh? Don't do cliches. Give us real policies that you guys are running on, and we will vote for you. But you assholes don't want to follow through with those policies. That's why you don't advertise them or promote them. You do cliches. You try and have your cake and eat it too. And that is why I and a lot of other people like to say, fuck you. I ain't voting for you because I don't vote based off the lesser of two evils.
Midterm elections are boring. Let me know when we're talking about a presidential race. Sometimes these elections are even more important than a presidential race. This November, 36 states are picking governor. Every single spot in the House of Representatives is on the ballot. Fill them with people who care about what you care about.
Fine, no problem. I will happily fill Congress with members of people who care about and support the policies that I support. The problem is that option, for the most part, doesn't exist. Okay? As an example, 70% of Americans want Medicare for all. 70%. I believe it's about 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all. Every industrialized country on the planet provides one version or another of a single-payer system. We have anywhere from about 32 to 45,000 people die in this country because they do not have access to affordable health care. Look, when you accept substantial sums of money for your campaign by Big Pharma, guess what? You ain't gonna do what Big Pharma doesn't want you to do. So stop lecturing us on why we don't vote for you.
I don't know the candidates well enough. I'm uninformed. There are people running for office who don't think women should get equal pay for equal work.
I'm sorry, you're lecturing people about being uninformed as you talk about the wage gap. You know, that thing that has been debunked over and over again.
The wage gap is simply the average earnings of men and women working full-time. It does not count for different job positions, hours worked, or different jobs. It has nothing to do with the same job. It has nothing to do with discrimination.
Who don't think we should do anything about schools getting shot up, or who think we shouldn't raise the minimum wage for people who are working their tails off every day but still can't afford to pay the rent.
As an example, Australia has a minimum wage around $18. The way that you go about the minimum wage is you don't just say, hey, we should raise the minimum wage, because technically raising it by a single cent would be enough to fulfill that campaign promise. So what you really should be offering is to raise it to a living wage, which is, I believe, at least $15 an hour, and then tying it to inflation. That is what you need to do. If you tied it to inflation, you would never need to touch the minimum wage again, because that's why we have to keep raising it in the first place, because of inflation. So just tie it to inflation and we're good. We never need to have this conversation ever again. As long as the minimum wage is at a living wage and it's tied to inflation, we're good. So maybe fight for really specific policies instead of just randomly saying, oh, we just need to raise the minimum wage. You know, just raise it, whatever. Yeah, not good enough. Not good enough.
Vote them out. Vote for somebody who shares your values.
Again, when you say vote them out, you're basically saying vote for the lesser of two evils. And when you say vote for someone with your values, where the fuck are they? Because they're not in the Democratic Party. So where am I supposed to go? Why don't you have values that most Americans care about, and then we'll vote for those people? Medicare for all, public college tuition paid for by the public, ending the wars, ending the drug war, legalizing marijuana, legalizing prostitution, raising the minimum wage to a living wage and tying it to inflation. Campaign finance reform. Have the Democratic Party unite under these policies, and there will be a blue wave like you have never seen. But because you assholes don't actually want to fulfill on those promises, you don't make them. You do cliches, and you say vote for the lesser of two evils without saying those specific words. You just talk shit about the other. Look at my opposition. Oh, they're terrible. They're morons. They're idiots. They're a bunch of retards. We can't trust them with power, so don't vote for them. Meaning vote for me. But goddamn, does that turn people away from the polls. Who the fuck is enthused about voting for the lesser of two evils? How many phone calls and door knocks are you really going to commit based off the lesser of two evils? Not many, I'm guessing. Not many.
Also, this thing has something called Google. You can't use Google to figure out which candidates on your local ballot think that the earth is flat and climate change is a hoax.
Ah, yes, because there's so many conservatives in Congress that believe that the world is flat. Again, this is just saying, wow, do those people suck? Guess you better vote for me. I mean, granted, I'm not going to offer you much, and I will maintain the status quo, even though it could be destroying your life, but wow, do those people suck? So be sure to vote for me, the lesser of two evils, which of course turns people away from the polling booths.
I don't know where I'm supposed to vote. This one's easy. Do you know your address? If you do, just go to vote.org, plug in your address, it'll tell you where to vote. It's that simple.
Yeah, I actually have really no commentary on that. I mean, that's pretty straightforward and good advice, you know.
All right, next. I don't have time to vote. I understand that it's not always easy to find time to vote on a Tuesday. That's why in every state, you can get an absentee ballot, which you can mail in or drop off ahead of Election Day. And in 37 states, you can actually vote early, which is like going to a private Jay-Z Beyonce concert, just without Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Okay, please do not act hip. So, please don't do that. If I was president, like you were, then I would aggressively and passionately make the case that the day that we vote should be a holiday. It should be a paid holiday. And for those of you who say, well, we've just got too many holidays, I'm not cool with adding another one. That's fine. That's fine. We'll just scrap one that no one uses. Like Columbus Day. Yeah, we'll just scrap that one. Who the fuck do you know actually celebrates Columbus Day? Okay? It's not really that much of a thing that people care about. So we get rid of that and we implement Voting Day, a holiday specifically dedicated to voting. It's an easy case to make and you never made it.
But take some friends anyway, beat the lines, because like most things, voting's more fun when you do it together. Share the video and tell your friends to vote on November 6th.
I have never found voting to be fun, ever, but I do consider it patriotic. Not voting in and of itself, but voting for representatives that represent you. That's the point of voting. To get people who represent you, your ideas, and your values, and to get those ideas implemented. That is why we vote. If we vote based off the lesser of two evils, or if we vote simply out of patriotism, like, well, it's patriotic, it's part of our country, therefore we should just vote. Don't vote for them if they don't represent you. It's not as if every candidate that I would vote for has to support every single thing that I support, but they have to at least support some of this stuff, and they don't, for the most part. So if the candidates are not representing you, then don't just allow them to maintain their power. You don't owe them your vote. They are required to earn your vote. They have to earn it. And if they don't, then don't vote for them. And if there are no candidates that actually earn your vote, then don't vote. Don't do it. There are so many terrible people on the Democratic Party right now. And the reason they're there is not because they made their case to the American people and people supported them and got them elected for those reasons. They did it because they built their election on the lesser of two evils and enough people bought into that bullshit. That's why they're there. That's why shit maintains itself. They don't earn our votes. We just give it away. We hand them our votes anyways because they have convinced us to make a political calculation with our vote. That is not how voting is supposed to work. They are supposed to earn our vote. And if they don't, then don't vote.
It's a wrap. You know, I'd stay for the wrap party, but I've got other stuff to do.